and gentlemen, good evening. My name is Bill Rolston. I'm part of the Management Committee of Relatives for Justice, organisers of tonight's event. And I just want to say a few words by way of introduction. First of all, needless to say, but I'll say it anyway, you're all very, very welcome here. This is a sign that we have each year of a very small sign of that, a sort of iceberg of support that there is for the Finucane family in this 28-year struggle they've had for truth and accountability in relation to Pat's death. I also would like to welcome various other people whom you can't see here who are joining us through Periscope and through Facebook and through Twitter, people in the United States, people in Europe. This is being broadcast live to them, so welcome to them as well. And welcome to all of you, and not to list all the people, but just to say that we have representatives of the Department of Foreign Affairs, the Northern Ireland Office, the PSNI, the Ombudsman's Office, the DPP, etc., as well as, of course, all of you others who are representing the cause of justice, which is what I think probably unites us all tonight. Just let me say a few words. I won't delay you long before I introduce the main speaker tonight. In the week that's in it, the Finucane family have had another setback, as I'm sure you know if you've been following the press. And it leads me to think, how could anybody be so crass, as you hear every now and again, to say, why don't victims just give up? You know, why don't they sort of learn to live with things? Why don't they draw a line in the sand and move on? And I think the perfect answer to that is to say, look at what drives the Finucane family in the quest over nearly 3 decades now, the quest for truth and for justice. And it reminds me that there are sort of 2 reasons why you don't give up. Well, there are more than that probably, but two ones that come to my mind. The first one is that, in a sense, it's not history, it's not over. It's not over because the questions are still out there to be answered. It's not over because the documents that are needed are still not all revealed for everybody to see. So it's not over, basically, till the answers are given and some sort of attempt at truth and justice is genuinely made. But there's a second reason which strikes me, and that is that the same sorts of circumstances, the same sorts of logic, and indeed the same sorts of mentality that allowed for the death of Pat Finucane and later for the death of Rosemary Nelson has not gone away. When we've got a situation where some people can say that when we ask for truth and we ask for justice, that we're guilty of a pernicious narrative, that somehow that we're trying to carry on a war by other means. When we've got newspapers, felon-setting solicitors who are doing their job, the only consolation we can have is that at least there's not the same level of violence as when Pat was killed. Otherwise, who else would we be talking about here tonight? And I'll leave you with this sort of thought before I introduce the main speaker. I was thinking today of a play that some of you may have heard of or seen, an old play by the German playwright Bertolt Brecht. It's about the rise of Hitler. It's called The Resistible Rise of Arturo Ui. So he says the rise of Hitler was resistible. And at the end of the play, one of the actors turns towards the audience and basically says to the audience, well, listen, that's good, that's over, everything settles now, the play's finished, hope you're happy, but just bear one thing in mind. Beware, the bitch that bore him is in heat again. So we have real reasons to not forget the past, and certainly not to forget the case of Pat Finucane. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Minister from the Irish Republic, Mr. Charlie Flanagan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Phil, Geraldine, family, and Senior Murray. Ladies and gentlemen, can I say at the outset that I feel very honoured to have been asked to deliver this year's Pat Finucane lecture. And I want to express my warm appreciation to Geraldine and the Finucane family, as well as the Relatives for Justice. for the kind invitation to make this address. I know from direct knowledge that this annual lecture provides an opportunity to mark the life of Pat Finucane, lawyer, a remarkable man, but also to be in a position to reflect on the past and, most importantly of all, on the future, where we are and where we would like to be, and how we can proceed on matters of great importance. Standing before you, 28 years since the murder of Pat Finucane, and nearly 19 years since the Good Friday Agreement, I find that we have much to reflect upon. Political and indeed legal and constitutional developments, not just on these islands but around the world, have come at us thick and fast since the former UN Special Rapporteur, Frank Leroux, addressed this gathering last year. However, some things can and do remain constant, namely the respect for the rule of law, the protection of and the promotion of human rights for everybody in the community. So my remarks this evening will focus upon these principles, how they apply to some of the challenges that face us, particularly as we look to comprehensively address the legacy of our troubled past. Over the past few months and years, I, like many of you, have been immersed in the detail, both legal and political, of these questions. Indeed, when preparing for this evening, it struck me that the public discourse has also become quite focused on this detail, and perhaps there is a need to take a step back and remind ourselves of what indeed is the bigger picture. Discussions about how we will handle legacy issues are vital, but these will only succeed if we are also clear as to why we need to do so. Perhaps too many things have fallen into the category of, and we hear it every day, it goes without saying. I believe tonight is a good opportunity and an appropriate moment to say some of these things out loud. That the tragedies of the past have left a deep and profoundly regrettable legacy of suffering. We must never forget those who have died or been injured and their families, but we can best honour them through a fresh start in which we firmly dedicate ourselves to the achievement of reconciliation and tolerance, mutual trust, and to the protection and vindication of the human rights of all. Unquote. These are the words of the declaration of support that prefaced the Good Friday Agreement, and they continue to encapsulate the approach of the Irish government. We must address what has happened and remember it. We have a duty to those injured and bereaved to provide whatever truth and justice and healing is possible, and we must use the lessons of the past to secure a better and truly shared future for all. And can I say that at the heart of all of this, and central to our assembly here this evening, is the rule of law and respect and support for those who uphold it. As a solicitor myself, I remember the shock which the murder of Pat Finucane and later of Rosemary Nelson caused amongst the entire legal profession on the island of Ireland. As with any murder, these killings visited tragedy upon families and violence upon society. But this was further amplified by the chilling sense of an attack on the very law itself. As a legislator, my function is to make the laws, but I'm always mindful that the harder part falls to those who every day must operate and process and defend those laws, whether in its enforcement or its advocacy or ultimately its adjudication. To uphold the law in accordance with the highest standards without fear or favour is as much a vocation as it is a profession. As such, it is deserving of support and respect from Parliament, from government, from the media, from communities, and from society as a whole. Those officers of the law who must work in the full glare of the public and political gaze must be allowed to do their duty without attacks on their personal or professional integrity, much less their lives. It is our duty to create the conditions under which the law can operate without fear or favour. So as we gather here in the week of Pat Finucane's anniversary, the past is far too near and its echoes should be far too loud for this lesson to be forgotten anywhere across these islands. So let us take a moment to remember it now. It is that same respect for the rule of law and the protection and vindication of the human rights of all that underpin the architecture agreed by both governments and the 5 main political parties back in 2014 at Stormont House. In the intervening 2 years, the detail of how the different institutions within this architecture will operate has been much discussed in private and in public. But during that time, we have seen debates about what will and will not be covered or focused upon, and a great deal of discussion about the meaning of concepts like fair and balanced and proportionate. I want to make absolutely clear that the Stormont House institutions set out a comprehensive, inclusive approach to dealing with our troubled past, which also meets the obligations on state parties, including the British and Irish governments, under the European Convention on Human Rights. So what does this mean in real terms and in plain language? It means that those of us in positions of authority must challenge ourselves and our own personal experiences and politics in order to ensure the greater good. It means there can be no hierarchy of victims in this process. Regardless of who someone was, and regardless of what they were doing, there is a requirement to effectively and meticulously investigate the matter of their death. It's not for governments to say to the bereaved that their loss or suffering is of greater or lesser worth than that of their neighbour, or even their adversary. Similarly, let me say quite clearly, there can be no amnesties. If a killing has taken place, it must be properly investigated to ascertain if it was unlawful, and thereafter, if the threshold of proof is met, a prosecution must actively and vigorously be pursued. Given some of the misinformation that's in the public domain around this issue, I understand how concerns about a perceived imbalance may have arisen. Let me address that. This process is not about seeking to find an artificial balance or equivalence, but about ensuring that we have a comprehensive approach. It means looking at all the troubles-related deaths, regardless of who the perpetrator was. Indeed, the statistics in that regard speak for themselves, with the vast majority of those who lost their lives killed by paramilitary groups. Having said that, I would always caution against any effort to make discussion of these issues a numbers game, because as everybody here in this room knows, and indeed beyond this room, behind each of those numbers is a person, and behind that again, the grief of loved ones, of family, and indeed communities. We are here tonight with one such family, the Finucane family, a family which has suffered the loss of a husband, a father, and a brother, a family whom we've got to know as with great courage and dignity and resilience they have told their story. So Geraldine, I would like to acknowledge your grief and the grief of your family, your enduring loss. I wish to pay tribute to your ongoing quest for truth, which I know has been difficult and painful. And in acknowledging this family, the Finucanes, who only this week experienced a fresh disappointment on that ongoing and difficult quest for the truth. I would like also to acknowledge all those families affected by loss or rising from the troubles. Some families are well known, others are not. Some families are vocal, others are silent, but all are equal in their grief, in their loss, in their suffering. And there are many thousands across this society who continue to bear the scars, both physical and mental. And it's important that we acknowledge them all, and we do here this evening. I want to acknowledge the many men and women on both sides of the border who performed their duty to protect the public with diligence and honour throughout the troubles. Their service has not and must not be forgotten, and there is no contradiction in my mind between this acknowledgement and the need for a clear-eyed, holistic approach where collusion and other wrongdoing is also identified and pursued. Indeed, this approach is reflected in the framework as agreed at Stormont House. It has also informed the Irish Government's attitude over many years to the McCarr and others group of cases at the Council of Europe in Strasbourg, including, of course, the case of Pat Finucane. While working closely with the British Government and the political parties here on finding a way forward in the Stormont House institutions, we have consistently underlined that the responsibility for implementation of these judgments through the effective investigation rests with the sovereign government. In this regard, I remain acutely concerned about the failure to properly resource legacy inquiries and would again urge the British Government to implement the proposals of the Lord Chief Justice. This would fulfil the outstanding Article 2 obligations in respect of these 56 outstanding cases and provide much needed trust and confidence in our collective capacity to address these legacy issues. For my own participation in the Stormont House talks in late 2014, I know that the issue of legacy inquests is seriously complex. It's sensitive. It's difficult. We all know that. But it is to the great credit of the Lord Chief Justice that he took personal responsibility to prepare and bring forward proposals to address this issue. Proposals which have earned the confidence of the relevant families. And I want to commend his initiative. An initiative that surely merits the necessary political endorsement and, of course, the appropriate resourcing. Last December, the Government reiterated its support for the reopening of individual measures in the Finucane case. This reflects our belief that had the Committee of Ministers been aware in 2009 of the existence of the new and significant information relating to the murder of Pat Finucane, which came to light following the De Silva review, it may not have agreed to the closure of these individual measures. The firm view of the Irish Government remains that a satisfactory outcome to this case will best be achieved by means of and through a full public inquiry. I want to underline that this is not about making a special case of one victim, but rather about the importance of honouring commitments made, in this case by the British Government at Weston Park almost 16 years ago. Honouring commitments and living up to agreements is an area where we all have fallen short when it comes to addressing the legacy of the past. It's been 10 years since the Eames-Bradley report. I'm keenly aware that victims and survivors, and indeed society as a whole, have been through the promise, dashed hopes, several processes over that period of time. I remain convinced that the institutional framework in the Stormont House Agreement now offers the best way of bringing whatever healing is possible to those bereaved and afflicted by the Troubles. I am keenly aware of the shock and disappointment felt in November 2015, when it was not possible to have a detailed outcome on legacy that we had hoped for under the Fresh Start Agreement. In fact, on the very evening the talks concluded, I happened to be in Derry. I was speaking to Dennis Bradley. He expressed his disappointment. In fact, he gave me a piece of his mind in the way that perhaps only Dennis Bradley can. And I believe it's important that we continue to pursue this issue until such time as there is a satisfactory pathway forward. The engagement of my department over the past year with a wide range of victims and survivors groups has further strengthened my resolve to see this architecture put in place at the earliest possible opportunity. And I want to assure all of you here this evening that the Irish Government remains strongly committed to continuing the work. We will continue to engage with the British Government and the political parties here in Northern Ireland to this very end. The few but significant outstanding issues must be resolved so that the Stormont House institutional framework and the past can be agreed and legislated for, as required in both the United Kingdom and indeed in Dublin. This work will require intensive political engagement. It will require commitment of a significant degree, but it will also involve a spirit of compromise if victims and survivors are not to be let down one more time. Indeed, let me assure you that the Irish government will not be found wanting in this regard. But let me say further, and let me say very clearly, this time is now. The time is now because the need is great, and the need is great for individual victims and survivors, yes, but also for the vital work of healing and reconciling in society. We need only open a newspaper or turn on the television to demonstrate the impact which the legacy of the past is having on the present, and therefore will continue to have on the future. The weight of what has gone before encumbers policing, encumbers politics, indeed even encumbers the judicial system in a way that is neither desirable or sustainable. We all know that we need to do something differently, and the Stormont House institutions offer us that possibility. When I speak of healing, I don't mean that there will be perfect outcomes. Of course, we all know there will be not. But there will be equality of access, something which is clearly lacking now. The architecture also opens, rather than closes, avenues with investigation and truth recovery, both available to those who choose to pursue them. The question we should ask ourselves is not whether these legacy institutions will be flawless, satisfying every victim and every survivor, because clearly they will not. Rather, the question is whether they will be better than a status quo that does not deliver for victims, that places massive burdens on the policing and judicial systems, and shows absolutely no signs of becoming fit for purpose. In contrast to a failing status quo, implementing the Stormont House framework offers us a credible prospect of advancing access to justice, providing some measure of truth, and promoting reconciliation in the interest of the public of this island, and indeed of these islands, east-west. When I speak of justice, I do not mean retribution. A fair and impartial legal approach to our difficult recent past will help us achieve a more just society and contribute to building a better and peaceful island, which we all desire. When I speak of reconciliation, I do not mean that we should forget or seek a bland or common narrative of what happened, but we should seek to learn from the past, lest we repeat it at some future time. We should seek to identify themes and patterns which help us set future policies. We should do all of this and more, although it will be uncomfortable, it will be difficult, it will be challenging, but we need to do it so that we can make a contribution to a better and more reconciled society, because this is firmly in the public interest. So the constancy of Mrs. Geraldine Finucane and her family in honouring the memory of Pat Finucane and in seeking truth and justice on his behalf should renew, should inspire our determination to finish the job as set out in the Good Friday Agreement almost 2 decades ago, and now to establish without delay the legacy institutions for dealing with the past, to honour our commitments to the victims and survivors for the benefit of the wider society. And that time, ladies and gentlemen, is now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Flanagan. Full public inquiry, as promised. You couldn't be clearer. Thank you. And now, Geraldine Finucane.
Mr. Chairman, Minister Flanagan, honoured guests, ladies and gentlemen, I am honoured to be able to address you tonight some 28 years since the murder of Pat, a solicitor born and bred in Belfast. He was murdered, as you all know, by loyalist paramilitaries in our home on Sunday, the 12th of February 1989. I would like to say that the passing of the years has made Pat's death easier to bear, but this would not be true. In fact, the more time that passes, the more difficult it is to bear his loss. This is partly because of how much we miss him as a person, but also because of what we now know about the circumstances surrounding his murder. We know beyond any doubt that Pat was murdered with the active assistance and participation of the former Northern Ireland Police Force, the RUC, the British Army and the British state. There was a time when we did not know as much as we do now, and the claim that Britain was involved produced scepticism in many quarters. Politicians in government and officials in state positions at home and abroad disbelieved our suspicions entirely. Some even poured scorn on our allegations of state collusion and said the ideas were fanciful. In a response to a 1993 report by a United States human rights organisation, the Lawyers Committee for Human Rights, which raised serious questions about collusion even then, a Deputy Chief Constable of the RUC responded to their work in a letter, and here I quote, "There is a repetition of unsubstantiated allegations, as if these constituted evidence of security force or official misconduct. It is a pity that the end result should be so flawed." End of quote. On the 26th of June 2015, Mr Justice Stevens delivered his rulings on our application for judicial review in the Belfast High Court. In the opening paragraphs of his judgment, he said the following, and again I quote, "Geraldine Finucane was convinced from the beginning that servants or agents of the state were involved in the murder of her husband. The government has accepted that there was state involvement and has apologised for it. It is hard to express in forceful enough terms the appropriate response to the murder, the collusion associated with it, the failure to prevent the murder and the obstruction of some of the investigations into it. Individually and collectively, they were abominations which amounted to the most conspicuously bad, glaring and flagrant breach of the obligation of the state to protect the life of its citizens and to ensure the rule of law. There is and can be no attempt at justification." End of quote. Sadly, Mr Justice Stevens concluded that the decision of the British government was not unlawful, and so he was unable to order an inquiry. We appealed this decision, and on Tuesday, the Northern Ireland Court of Appeal delivered its judgment on our case for a public inquiry. Sadly, we were once again unsuccessful, but there may be yet grounds for a further appeal. When then does this case for a public inquiry into the murder of Pat Finucane rest? The courts have concluded that they cannot order an inquiry. The British government has determined it will not hold an inquiry. Perhaps all that can be done has been done. Perhaps the murder of Pat Finucane is simply old news. I do not think that the controversy surrounding Pat's murder has been properly resolved. I believe I am right in this, not just because of a broken promise by the British government, but because of the unanswered questions that arise from Pat's murder and the fact that no one within the British establishment has ever been made accountable for it. I believe I am right because the Irish Minister for Foreign Affairs is here tonight and has spoken on behalf of the Irish government of their continued support for a public inquiry. Most of all, I believe I am right because of the unwavering support my family and I have had from the people of Belfast and beyond for the last 28 years. I see many people here tonight who have stood with us for all of those 3 decades, helping us out, urging us on. I meet them often at events such as this, or just when I'm out and about on my daily business. I am constantly approached by people who wish me and my family well, and they tell me we are doing good work. Some people even tell me that they have known tragedy in their lives, but were unable to follow through on it for various reasons. But they gain comfort and some degree of closure by knowing that someone is holding the British state accountable for their actions. But everyone ends by telling me the same thing: keep going, it's important. This is why we do what we do. This is why we keep going. It isn't easy. Many times over the years we have felt like we have no more left to give, like we are fighting an unbeatable enemy, like the obstacles before us are insurmountable. It is at times like these that my family and I take strength from two things. One is the path that lies behind us, which helps us put the obstacles ahead into perspective. Because of what we have uncovered, the High Court in Belfast now declares as a fact that Pat's murder was an abomination, and that it amounted to the most conspicuously bad, glaring and flagrant breach of the obligation of the state to protect the life of its citizens. Of course, this is not the first time there has been official recognition of the true nature of Pat's murder. Others have said similar things over the years. But I believe that the statement of Mr. Justice Stevens in the High Court in Belfast is significant. It is where Pat himself worked, where he plied his trade, where he represented his own people. And it is perhaps the recognition that would have brought him the most satisfaction, because convincing people in your own backyard is often more difficult than anywhere else. However, we did not have to convince everyone that we were right. This is the second thing that keeps us going. The people who believed us right from the start, who knew there was something rotten in the British state and who have supported us for so many years. Pat's friends, Pat's community, Pat's own people. We have been encouraged and supported and helped by so many people when the going got tough. And the reason we keep going and can keep going is because of all that help and support, and because there are so many people who want us to. There are so many people who, like us, want to find out the truth behind Pat's murder. It is unfinished business for them, and it is certainly unfinished business for us. I want to know why, I want to know how, and I want to know who. I want to ask my own questions, and I want to hear the answers for myself. I want to read the documents and understand the frameworks. Most of all, I want to be able to show them to the entire world so that everyone can know and learn what can be done by governments in the name of the people if we are not vigilant. Most of all, I want to share that accomplishment with you, Pat's own people, so that together we can turn unfinished business into finished business. I owe you all a great deal for your support over the years. I would very much like to share that final achievement with you also. Thank you all very much.
Just to say, ladies and gentlemen, that it's a short session tonight. There's no question and answer session going to happen because different people have other engagements in other places. So thank you for coming. Keep up the support for Geraldine that she talked about and her family that she talked about there, and keep, I think, in the forefront of our minds the words of Minister Flanagan: public inquiry now. Thank you. Good night.